Black Friday, November 23rd. It's, the unofficial start of the holiday season. Stores are opening their doors super early. There are promises of huge discounts, and shoppers are all promising themselves they'll find that one perfect gift.
But on this day, for the hundreds of thousands of people gathered at the massive Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, that promise turned into just a crucible of unmitigated terror.
Yeah, and when we start this deep dive into the sources around this,
Right.
this horrific event, the initial story, a straightforward act of terror, it just dissolves almost immediately.
It does. What you're left with is this frantic, high-stakes investigation that very quickly uncovers a sophisticated, multi-layered conspiracy. This wasn't some random act of violence.
Right. Not a lone wolf.
No. This was a meticulously planned operation, and it was driven by the sort of cold calculus of political influence and really corporate security agendas.
Our sources really compel us to synthesize these two sides of the story. You have the personal stories of profound survival and betrayal on one hand.
And on the other, you have the chilling technical minutia of forensics and some very high-level political maneuvering. We're going way beyond the headlines here to really understand the gears grinding beneath the surface of the official narratives.
And so our mission for you today, it really focuses on 4 critical unknowns.
Exactly. First, we have to understand the true nature of this conspiracy group and the identity of the unwitting victims, the carriers who brought the explosives into the mall.
Second, we really need to dissect the professional profile of the mastermind, this ghost-like figure they call the project manager.
Third, and this is a big one, we have to connect the dots between this Black Friday bombing and a decades-old act of domestic terror. There's this implied link to the Oklahoma City bombing that we have to explore.
And finally, we have to reveal what the true sinister political and corporate motivation was that was really underpinning all of this bloodshed and, well, whether the group behind the attack ultimately succeeded. So let's unpack this. To really get the impact of this, you first have to visualize the scene. It's Friday morning, November 23rd, and the Mall of America. It isn't just a shopping center.
No, it's basically a self-contained city.
A city. We're talking 4 towering stories, hundreds of stores, its own expansive amusement park right in the middle.
A movie theater complex, an entire aquarium. I mean, the sheer size of the place, it creates this sense of, impenetrable, happy normalcy.
And on that day, the expectation was massive. They were anticipating over 150,000 shoppers.
And you have to compound that with the weather. It was frigid. We're talking 20 degrees outside, and it was snowing heavily.
So every single person who could be inside was inside.
Which creates this pressure cooker environment. The density of the crowds was just overwhelming.
And our sources introduce us to the people who are caught right in the middle of this crush. We meet Rebecca Corey. She's a pre-vet student visiting from Connecticut.
And she's navigating these dense, elbowing crowds, and she's observing people in, what seems like totally inappropriate clothes muscle T-shirts, things like that, ignoring the blizzard outside.
Because the mall felt like a tropical climate inside.
Exactly. And she's part of this strange traveling trio.
Right. She's with 2 men. The first is Dixon Lee, who the sources describe as charming and witty, but he's also prone to these deeply ingrained political rants.
And the other one is Patrick Murphy. He's quiet, seems totally competent, but Rebecca finds his constant silent presence a little bit suspicious.
Yeah, why did this guy travel 1,300 miles with them? It's a good question.
And we really need to remember here that Rebecca isn't just some random observer. She's personally connected to the lead investigator we'll meet later, Maggie O'Dell, which makes her observations, highly reliable for our deep dive.
The narrative starts to center very quickly on Dixon's obsession, and this is where you start to see the first layers of the conspiracy being peeled back.
He's constantly railing against economic trends. He's telling anyone who will listen that, 80% of U.S. toys are now made in China.
And that over 500,000 production jobs were outsourced just in the last year.
And this isn't just, common consumer frustration. This is targeted ideological rhetoric.
He even uses xenophobic language. He rails against what he calls the Southern invasion, that's stealing jobs right out from under the American worker.
And that language is a crucial red flag. It suggests that his handlers, the people who recruited him, specifically primed him with this strong, politically charged material.
Material that would appeal to the specific xenophobic and nationalistic agenda of this secretive group we're going to learn more about.
Right. Even if Dixon himself didn't understand the depth of their manipulation.
And his physical preoccupation is this bulky red backpack. Dixon explicitly tells Patrick the backpack is his reward for lugging it around all day.
He even points out that it has a padlock on it.
Rebecca immediately suspects the whole idea came from Dixon's other friends, Chad and Tyler, who she feels kind of still treat Dixon like a tag-along, even though he chose his college just to be closer to her.
So the bag itself is an object of value, but its weight is just awkward.
And this is the moment where the plan just goes completely sideways. This is what leads to Rebecca's unexpected and tragic role as a carrier.
Dixon's iPhone, and Rebecca points out the irony of it being manufactured in China. It starts ringing with the theme song from Batman.
And his face just goes instantly white.
It's his grandfather, Henry Lee, on the phone. And the news is bad. His grandmother, Mrs. Lee, has been rushed to the hospital with a potential heart attack.
Dixon is panicked. He has to leave immediately. But he insists that Rebecca take his Chinese-made iPhone, and critically, he insists she take the red backpack.
He says a deal's a deal. That was their agreement.
Right. Rebecca, trying to be supportive, she just awkwardly takes this heavy bag and heads toward the restrooms.
She's distracted. She's thinking about Mrs. Lee, who had always been really kind to her. And she gets to the first stall in the women's restroom, hangs the red backpack on the door hook.
And then just leaves without it.
She just forgets the bag. She was going to go back for it later. And that small, completely human error, forgetting that bag in a busy restroom stall, is the only thing that ultimately saves her life.
Because just moments later, the entire mall is rocked by 3 rapid explosions.
And at first, the sound is just confusing. It's almost festive. Shoppers are startled, but a lot of them mistake that first blast for some elaborate theatrical effect.
Like Santa's arrival gone a little bit wrong.
Exactly. But the third blast, which is much closer, changes everything.
The scent of smoke and sulfur is intense, debris is flying everywhere, and this immediate collective panic just erupts.
And Patrick, who was on an escalator going down, he instinctively flips his direction. He starts racing up toward the third-floor food court, fighting against this frantic current of the fleeing mob.
And we learn that Patrick isn't just panicking. His instinct is based on training.
Right, he's studying fire science. And that professional training, which prepares you to move toward danger, it just kicks in.
He's observing the scene through the lens of hazard identification. You know, the debris, the smell, the spilled shopping bags, and his mind immediately locks onto those heavy red backpacks.
Meanwhile, Rebecca realizes she's injured. She's got a large, jagged, 3 to 4 inch piece of glass embedded in her left arm.
But what truly magnifies the terror for her, according to her account in the sources, is the macabre normalcy that's still playing over the PA system.
Amidst all the screams and the lockdown announcement, Bing Crosby is still crooning, telling her he'd be home for Christmas.
That juxtaposition of holiday cheer and violent death is just psychologically shattering.
She stumbles back towards the restrooms, which are now a scene of just utter destruction. She sees this charred, ragged hole where the women's restroom used to be.
The exact place where she left Dixon's backpack hanging on that door hook.
And Patrick's perspective confirms the sheer horrific violence of these bombs. When he finally reaches the area, the doorway to the restroom is completely gone.
There's a stench, like rotten eggs and sewage, which is the signature smell of the sulfurous explosives.
And he trips over something. At first, he dismisses it as like a discarded shopping display or a mannequin because of the twisted, impossible angle of the limbs.
But when he looks closer,
he realizes the legs are severed from the rest of the woman's torso. Her face is torn away. These bombs were not small. They were absolutely designed to kill.
that transition from just, consumerism to catastrophic violence is instantaneous, and it's brutal.
To understand how violence this shocking can even happen, you have to pull back from the street-level chaos and look at the cold, calculating mind that designed it all.
And so we shift our focus to the professional terrorist, the man known as Robert Asante, who prefers to be called the project manager.
The sources give us a fascinating breakdown of Asante's psychological profile and his deadly disguises. He claims to be Sicilian to explain his olive complexion, which helps mask his mixed heritage Arab father, white American mother.
But his ultimate tool of deception, the thing that really works for him, is his appearance. He has these indigo blue eyes, which immediately put everyone at ease about his background.
And he carries all the props of middle-class security. A gold wedding band, a photo of a beautiful blonde woman, and 2 little girls in his wallet.
He dresses like a successful all-American businessman. Leather jacket, designer shoes, a wireless earbud. He is specifically crafted to blend in, to look like the kind of professional who shouldn't be scrutinized.
And Asante is not present in the chaos he created. He watched the entire attack unfold from the safe distance of his car, which was parked across the street, totally outside the range of any known security cameras.
He's a detached professional. He's using technology to maintain that distance.
Right.
He had planted GPS systems on the 3 red backpacks and was monitoring them remotely.
And he describes the high-stakes detonation of these bombs not as an act of terror, but as a touchscreen video game.
He says the adrenaline and the success were better than drugs, better than sex.
Which tells you everything you need to know about his psychological detachment and his view of the human cost. They're just pawns in a digital exercise for him.
He successfully detonates Carrier 1, then Carrier 2, and he watches the little green blips disappear from his screen.
But then comes the critical, annoying glitch. A faint, repetitive bleep registers on his monitor.
And it's accompanied by a blinking green light for Carrier 3. One carrier is still alive, and the mission requires total control and 0 loose ends.
The GPS signal, which is still transmitting from that third backpack, leads him to this horrifying realization. The carrier is the young woman, Rebecca Corey.
She's curled up behind an overturned table, injured but functional. The bag she was carrying, Bixen's bag, had been the one that exploded in the women's restroom.
So this failure forces the project manager to violate his own security protocol and re-enter the chaotic scene.
And he immediately changes his disguise. He swaps his distinctive Carolina Panthers cap for a generic navy blue paramedic cap.
And critically, he trades his standard jogging shoes for heavy hiking boots that are 3 sizes too large.
Okay, why the oversized boots? That detail is just chilling.
It's a piece of professional tradecraft. The boots are prepared with socks stuffed into the toes, which allows him to run comfortably if he needs to, but they're designed specifically to throw off forensic shoe prints in the fresh Minnesota snow.
It's a perfect, calculated defense against the immediate investigation.
So following the live GPS signal, he finds Rebecca. He approaches her, offering help.
But Rebecca, despite the shock and the shard of glass in her arm, she notices 2 things that break his disguise.
His lack of a proper uniform and the syringe that's already loaded in his hand.
And she makes the immediate life-saving connection that this paramedic is not there to help.
She runs, she kicks a table leg into his path. Asante is momentarily thrown off balance and he loses her in the mob.
Frustrated by this loose end, he slips out a service exit, confirming the snow is indeed an unexpected bonus for obscuring the prints of his large boots.
And he immediately calls his point person to locate the other 2 carriers, Dixon and Patrick, ensuring their eventual fate is controlled.
But as the project manager escapes, the true nature of the conspiracy is beginning to unravel at St. Mary's Hospital.
Dixon, who was taken there when his grandmother was admitted, he confesses to his grandfather, Henry Lee.
Dixon admits that he, along with Chad and Tyler, believed they were carrying electronic jamming devices.
But he also voices his suspicion that it was something else. He references Henry's earlier warnings to stay away from Chad and Tyler.
And Henry Lee is the key to unlocking this entire scheme.
He reveals that his group, known publicly as Citizens for American Pride, or CAP, is merely a smokescreen.
In reality, they are an influential, deeply entrenched group composed of high-level, upstanding individuals, corporate heads, former military, political operators who have been secretly manipulating business contracts and government policy for nearly 15 years.
And their original intention for Black Friday was political theater, not mass murder.
So the devices Dixon was supposed to be carrying were indeed jamming devices. They were intended to create a virtual electronic blackout by disrupting computer and satellite feeds.
The goal was simply to prove how terrifyingly vulnerable the nation's commercial infrastructure was to a terrorist attack.
And this disruption would be the perfect catalyst to justify new, immensely expensive security measures that CIP and its associated companies would then profit from.
But Henry realizes with absolute horror that the project manager, Asante, had betrayed their mandate. He switched the jamming devices with real bombs.
Henry is devastated by the death toll, which is estimated at 32 initial fatalities. He shouts, "Dear God, 32, that wasn't supposed to happen."
Which suggests Henry only authorized a large, loud disruption, not mass slaughter. It implies the project manager was acting on his own. Or maybe following orders from a darker, more extreme faction within CAP.
And then comes the ultimate confirmation that the project manager is running rogue.
Henry reveals the terrifying new threat. Asante is planning another attack on Sunday, which is tomorrow, targeting an airport. The stakes have just exponentially increased.
So, with the realization that this initial attack was not an isolated event, but a carefully calculated move by a deeply influential shadow government, The federal response has to shift into high gear.
And this is what we meet the central investigator, FBI profiler Maggie O'Dell.
And Maggie is under intense pressure. She's flying on a private jet immediately after surviving exposure to the Ebola virus. So she's physically and emotionally vulnerable from the start.
And she's been called in by Adi Kunze, her superior, who openly blames her and her partner Tully for contributing to Cunningham's death.
So Maggie knows she's being sent to Minnesota to prove herself under extreme duress. She's carrying the political baggage of the Bureau with her.
The flight itself is a pressure cooker. She's sharing the jet with Kunze, Senator Foster of Minnesota, a man who will become highly suspect later, and Deputy Director Charlie Worth from Homeland Security.
So the political tension is palpable before they even land. They aren't just investigating a crime, they are immediately navigating a political crisis.
And on the ground, the initial evidence is it's almost useless. Maggie and Nick Morelli, an investigator for United Allied Security, or UAS, and a former prosecutor, they review the mall security tapes.
And UAS, we have to remember, is Henry Lee's company, which means the investigative team has a direct, if compromised, link to the conspiracy right from the start.
Nick confirms the tapes are grainy, black and white, and worst of all, they operate on a 3-second loop system, not a continuous feed.
Which makes it almost impossible to track movement smoothly.
Right. Security personnel initially noticed the 3 identical red backpacks, but they just thought they were identifying common shoplifters who often work in teams.
Morelli and Maggie analyze the carrier's profile, and they note that they defy expectation. They were clean-cut Caucasians, average height, dressed in regular street clothes.
Morelli even says to Maggie, they aren't exactly what you'd expect, are they?
Which confirms they were specifically chosen to be inconspicuous.
And the fact that the third blast originated in the women's restroom further suggests that the young woman, Rebecca, was either targeted or accidentally became the carrier, which complicates any standard profile instantly.
But the forensic examination is what solidifies their innocence.
The bomb expert, Janie, finds fragments of a highly specific detonating mechanism. This isn't just any explosive residue. She immediately recognizes the components as being similar to the mechanism used in the 1988 Lockerbie Pan Am flight bombing.
Okay, that is a crucial, high-impact technical detail. We need to spend some time on this.
We do. The Lockerbie bombing used Semtex plastic explosive and was known for its very specific, highly engineered detonator, the MST-13 timer.
So finding fragments of a similar, customized device immediately confirms 2 things. 1, the project manager is a master technician trained in old-school, high-security explosives.
And 2, the materials weren't bought commercially. This suggests state-level or high-end terrorist training.
But the key discovery is how the device was triggered. Jamie confirms the device is wireless. It allows for remote-controlled detonation.
And as she starkly puts it, the only reason to use such a complex wireless device is if you don't want to be anywhere near the bomb when you detonate it.
This completely changes the narrative for Maggie and the team.
It confirms the carriers, Dixon, Patrick, Chad, and Tyler, were unwitting victims. Their lack of nervous behavior on that grainy video now makes perfect sense.
They had no idea they were carrying instruments of death.
Jamie also notes that the detonator is similar to advanced plans she'd seen previously for a dirty bomb.
Which adds another chilling layer of menace. It shows that the project manager has access to next-generation terrorist blueprints, confirming his status as a professional terrorist, not just some extremist driven by political dogma.
And this professional profile immediately leads the investigation into the realm of official secrecy and government cover-ups.
Adi Kunze, in a really surprising moment of vulnerability, pulls Maggie aside and gives her a debriefing file from the Oklahoma City bombing case, an event that happened decades prior.
And Kunze confesses that over 20 witnesses in Oklahoma City saw Timothy McVeigh with a John Doe #2.
A man with an olive complexion, dark hair, muscular build, and the detail that makes Maggie freeze, the Carolina Panthers ball cap.
Hold on, the project manager, Robert Asante, wore a Carolina Panthers cap when he detonated the bombs from his car. That was the disguise he immediately swapped out for the paramedic cap before he went back into the mall.
Exactly.
Are you suggesting this project manager, this ghost of the Black Friday bombings, is potentially tied to the largest domestic terror attack of the 90s and the government knew about him?
That's what the sources are telling us. Kunze confirms the cover-up. He reveals there was an active high-level urgency back in 1995 to tailor the investigation to only nail McVeigh and his known accomplice, Carrie Nichols.
So agents like Kunze were actively held back from investigating the more complex, larger plot.
The sketch of John Doe #2 and the video from a Kansas sandwich shop that showed him. They just disappeared from the public record.
And this revelation connects directly back to Henry Lee's earlier kind of vague comment. Henry noted that Asante referred to himself as the project manager.
Which Henry speculated might be a twisted reference to the alleged John Doe #2.
So Maggie now realizes the profound magnitude of the person they are hunting, a professional, highly trained terrorist who orchestrated massive acts of destruction decades apart and whose existence was actively suppressed by federal authorities to maintain a simpler, cleaner official narrative.
The implication is terrifying. If the government suppressed the identity of this professional terrorist in 1995, who else is in the shadows?
And is Kunze giving Maggie this information now because he genuinely wants justice, or is it just because he needs her to prove herself by catching a man the system previously let go?
It just underscores the deep institutional rot that Maggie is fighting against.
With the reality of the project manager's history now established, the focus shifts entirely to prevention. They have less than 24 hours to stop the secondary attack that's scheduled for Sunday.
And Henry Lee, who's now cooperating despite his horrific betrayal of Dixon, he provides Maggie with a list of 7 potential targets for the Sunday attack: Atlanta, Detroit, Las Vegas, Milwaukee, Phoenix, Sky Harbor, Reagan National, and Salt Lake City.
And this list immediately raises red flags for Nick Morelli. Remember, Nick works for United Allied Security, UAS, Henry Lee's company.
Right.
And Nick recognizes this exact list from a UAS security training seminar he attended just 2 weeks prior.
Which confirms definitively that the project manager has an intimate link to UAS. It means the conspiracy is still operating with Henry Lee's corporate resources, or at the very least, knowledge of their strategic vulnerabilities.
And the rationale for these targets is purely commercial. Nick explains that UAS had been aggressively pushing airports to upgrade security in perimeter areas, the ticketing counters and baggage claim, because security currently only starts at the TSA checkpoint.
So the project manager's target must be an area of maximum vulnerability and maximum passenger density outside the established security perimeter.
A bombing in a high-traffic destination area would create the necessary political pressure for Congress to pass the new, expensive Homeland Security legislation that the secret CAP group desperately wants.
So Maggie applies a logical process of elimination to narrow down the list. She theorizes the target won't be a major hub like Salt Lake or Detroit, where most passengers are just connecting flights and they bypass ticketing and baggage claim.
Reagan National is also unlikely. It would be mostly politicians returning to D.C., suggesting too much immediate political blowback.
This leaves Phoenix, Sky Harbor, and Las Vegas, McCarran, as the most likely destination airports, where high volumes of tourists and travelers are congregating at the ticketing and baggage claim areas.
And Maggie chooses Phoenix. She argues that Las Vegas is too chaotic and often uses off-site check-in, which reduces the target density. They mobilize immediately.
But Maggie faces friction from Kunze over Patrick Murphy.
Patrick, now cleared of any involvement, and greatly relieved he didn't have to confess to Maggie about hiding in a commercial dryer vent to escape mall security after the blast.
He insists he must go to Phoenix.
And his reasoning is entirely emotional, but it's also highly valuable. He knows the project manager will change his disguise, but Patrick is convinced he'll recognize the man's eyes from their brief, terrifying confrontation at the mall.
And Charlie Worth, valuing Patrick's street sense over Kunze's bureaucracy, agrees to bring him along.
So the team flies to Sky Harbor. They deploy air marshals and a specialized Quantico bomb squad and sniper unit, all secretly disguised as mundane airport staff.
Housekeeping, construction workers, maintenance crew.
Right. And Nick installs new, discreet wireless cameras to cover the ticketing areas, hoping to catch the project manager in the act.
And while the team is setting this trap, David Simo, the governor's aide who's been assisting Henry Lee, he delivers a piece of good news.
Dixon, Henry Lee's grandson, and Rebecca, Maggie's stepsister, have been rescued.
They had been kidnapped from the hospital and the hotel, respectively, taken to a vacant office building basement that was being used as a command center by the project manager's cohorts.
And Rebecca is the unexpected hero of her own rescue. She used a piece of jagged metal on the furnace in the basement to saw through the plastic ties that were binding her wrists.
Dixon then reveals the whole place is rigged to blow. They can smell smoke and gasoline.
The kidnappers were ensuring there were no loose ends. They were intending to eliminate the witnesses before the Phoenix attack.
The rescue is a harrowing race against time. David Simo had a critical piece of information: Henry Lee's smartphone. The kidnappers, in a foolish attempt to taunt Henry, had left it on.
And Simo used the GPS tracking to locate the vacant building, leading a SWAT team there just moments before the place exploded. Rebecca and Dixon were pulled out just as the fire consumed the structure.
But the final confrontation happens in the heart of Sky Harbor Airport. Patrick is wandering the busy terminal, acting as a spotter.
And he spots a man fitting the profile. Asante has changed completely again. His hair is short and almost blonde. He's clean-shaven, wearing a golf shirt and a navy canvas jacket.
The classic golf dad look.
Exactly. But Patrick recognizes the man's confident walk and, crucially, those indigo eyes.
And Asante, the professional, sees Patrick seeing him. He immediately shifts the plan.
He handcuffs Patrick to a heavy black Pullman suitcase bomb right near the bustling U.S. Airways counters, transforming Patrick into a human shield.
He then uses a highly sophisticated jammer to infiltrate Maggie's wireless headset communication system. And his voice is chillingly calm.
I have a remote. You don't have any choice but to let me walk out of here.
The entire team's communication is instantly useless, and the project manager has regained full control of the narrative.
Patrick, chained to the bomb, he manages a desperate, heroic signal. He gestures wildly to Maggie, pointing to Asante, and he mouths the words, "Go after him."
He's telling Maggie to ignore his imminent danger and prioritize stopping the terrorist.
So Maggie makes the impossible choice. She chases Asante out onto the curbside check-in area, dodging startled passengers and ignoring the screams of her colleagues demanding she fall back.
And she watches him slip into the passenger seat of a black sedan.
As the car speeds away, Maggie focuses on the license plate. She slams out the door and dives for cover just as the explosion occurs. But it's not the bomb Patrick is chained to.
It's a parking garage behind her. Asante has destroyed the getaway vehicle and the immediate evidence of his escape in one final calculated move.
The project manager has escaped again.
So Maggie finds herself in the debriefing room, just physically and emotionally spent, sitting across from A.D. Kunze.
And despite dozens of injuries and 2 fatalities from that parking garage blast, almost 100 vehicles destroyed, Kunze is minimizing the attack. He's focusing on the failure to apprehend the suspect.
Maggie insists she got the license plate number of the black sedan. She memorized the alphanumeric combination in that rush of adrenaline.
And Kunze's response is the final, chilling confirmation of the conspiracy. He tells her she must have misremembered the plate due to stress.
He confesses he checked the number himself, and it tracked back to a federal government vehicle. He denies her access to the records.
And his final word is a demand, a direct echo of the institutional cover-up he experienced decades earlier in Oklahoma City. Leave it alone, O'Dell.
The government agency Kunze works for actively facilitated the escape of the professional terrorist and is now working to suppress the evidence.
The only silver lining is Patrick. The Pullman suitcase bomb he was chained to was successfully recovered by the bomb squad and contained in a specialized lead-safe container,
which prevented the wireless remote signal from detonating the device. Patrick is safe, though severely traumatized.
In the aftermath, the political fallout quickly settles, but not in favor of justice. Senator Foster, who was on the jet with Maggie and was linked to the project manager's government escape vehicle, he's quickly investigated for his connections.
And he resigns before he can be officially implicated.
Henry Lee's testimony secured his freedom, confirming the existence and operation of the Secret Citizens for American Pride, or CAP, group, and their financial and political motives.
But the organization, sensing danger, immediately closed ranks. They'd attempt to disappear back into the shadows of corporate influence.
And what's truly remarkable, and the ultimate success of the conspiracy, is the legislation itself.
Senator Foster's co-sponsor pushes through the Homeland Security Bill, complete with an enormous price tag, elevating security requirements in airports and shopping complexes across the nation.
The violence worked. Through 2 catastrophic, high-profile attacks, the secretive, influential group achieved its desired outcome. Mandated expensive security legislation that they or their associates will undoubtedly profit from for years to come.
The project manager was the perfect destructive catalyst.
And the fallout is personal for Maggie, too. Her growing distrust of Kunze's FBI bureaucracy and his blatant suppression of the government vehicle evidence is corrosive.
Charlie Worth from Homeland Security offers Maggie a job, which she seriously considers, realizing that to truly fight this kind of corruption, she might need to escape the restrictive, compromised FBI structure.
But the case remains, in official terms, unsolved. The project manager, Robert Asante, vanished, having successfully destroyed the getaway vehicle by blowing up that parking garage. He is now truly a ghost.
Yet Maggie and Patrick find a quiet return to normalcy. Their relationship, forged in crisis, begins to heal. Patrick is safe, and he's now openly sharing his life and his major career change to fire science with Maggie.
They plan to go tree hunting together, a small, quiet act of living despite the terror they faced.
So we started this deep dive with a Black Friday bombing that appeared to be a straightforward act of foreign terror, but we ended up uncovering a high-stakes political corporate conspiracy orchestrated by a shadowy domestic group intent on pushing security legislation.
The carriers were innocent victims, and the project manager was an elusive, professional terrorist hired to escalate the situation until the political objective was met.
And the aha moment, the most shocking revelation, is the persistent implied identity of that mastermind.
The sources definitively connect the project manager, a man with an olive complexion who wore a Carolina Panthers cap, to the rumored John Doe #2 of the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing.
John Doe #2 was described by over 20 independent witnesses, yet his existence was officially denied, and the evidence surrounding him disappeared.
Which leaves us with a truly provocative thought to consider, and the ultimate question of this deep dive. If a professional terrorist like the project manager was able to execute massive acts of destruction, manipulate high-level officials, and successfully evade prosecution and official recognition twice in 1995 and again now, does this suggest a deep, complex, institutional conspiracy that federal authorities actively work to suppress, making you wonder how much of the official narrative surrounding national security events we can ever truly trust?
Thank you for sharing your sources and taking this deep dive with us.